that's not the real interpretation. But I feel like one real one might be like being in New York around Christmas time, through Christmas time. That experience when the city kind of quiets down, people clear out. That to me feels like the real New York. And so that means all you guys here, we're all real New Yorkers. I don't know. Said from maybe not a real New Yorker. Anyways, so without any further ado, is Matt Proctor here? Matt Proctor? Yeah. Yes, he is. I will read this wonderful bio. Matt Proctor is a poet from Columbus, Ohio. He is the winner of the First Amendment Award from Brooklyn Free Speech Television and live streams regularly on YouTube at scenes_from_a_life. Matt Proctor.
All right, thank you for having me. Thank you, JT. This is an amazing event. I've always wanted to read the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. I'm just going to read one piece from my Cosmopolitan Micro Diary. It's about 7 minutes, and so I'll just go straight through. It is called Smash or Pass. Smash or Pass. Showing the news as we live it, it's also chosen to ignore. Blink and you'll enter. And besides, I wrote a song bringing true love and stability as if on the timetables of fate. He was making decisions, but they weren't the best decisions. Toking up in the non-smoking section, it seems like they're down a person. Objects make my decisions for me. Put this motor in the slot. A gross disparity in 8-particle body falling off the scale. The title before you get to the real one. Finding it as you're making it. It's scary to go in without a plan. Their voices arrive in these pages. There's no problem with that. I'm learning from you. A really nice bit of frame. It makes me feel better than anything else. What if I sit where the palm is uni? I love that, to score the cocktail. It is only with the heart we can see rightly. But he grew up in a castle, so it's easier. I woke up the next day sending options to the blackout. They were all tipping each other over. Random bugs would show up losing weight. You enter a hamlet where they're taking up a 6-top by themselves, and I didn't buy anything, and want the room so I can smoke, which I'm also not supposed to be doing. A German band emerges into the grove surrounding the Imagine Circle. Then they play in the subway, and I fear to get tinnitus. She has a bed like it's her job, knowing when to listen and when to be a separate country. Going to a gas station on West Broad after the Naked Bike ride in 2013 must be because that band's over-influencing the way young people think. People came out to smoke. I came out to be invisible. The bodegas on my lawn love doing youth to my past. Am I out of touch because I don't go to spaces like these? Live commenting in ink? A visual dimensional flesh track you'll never know? Switching parts with Lake Tahoe. We don't have jobs anymore. We have speed all the time. Not getting Timu all over me. Profiting off of stereotypes for clicks. Feel so naked without these chairs. Unexceptional in public. Getting ink bio on my pants. The board's splitting way behind, so I'm overdoing it before they break. It was about a year ago, then it tapered off. On a phone call, administering tattoo advice. He's the millennial Jon Stewart. I'm the Joe Rogan of the apartment. Can't find my lines forecasting the portal. Ready for something new, crowding the populated backyard with my protruding aloneness. Aloneness protruding in every direction. At rock and roll people with good hair. I was afraid to look because they'd start charging you. Put on for people and they come to you. Is there anywhere to plug in my phone? They do it to make fun of me. Pouches of American Spirit and brick walls of ivy by this tree and the Christmas lights. Everything started and comes back here for me, surreally in New York City, including now on this equinox autumnal. The sky is blue and all the leaves are green. He started to carry himself differently, which he didn't want. Mrs. Banff is an ambassador to Schroeder's Embassy Palaces off 5th Avenue on the Upper East Side. He wants to take the theater to karaoke, suffering acid, man-spreading in a wooden booth way past the yawning, avoiding eye contact with Calumet by the school in the ravine, the Olentangy Bridge where the Rhymes went over the barrier bisecting the thrift store basin. Certain options don't even show up till hours later as they are buried deep within one's preference. Trying to remember the names of old roads, hometown roads, where McLean went away 3 years ago from Mulford, which caught on fire from the memories, vaguely ignored at the edge of the whistling meadows, brooming the starlight for impropriety. Nothing like that came up in polite economy. What price, New York? Squirting all over my pelvic region, my shoe is barely a part of my foot. Not built for the long haul, his warm-up will blow most people up. Planking in a Charlotte wine bar till you turn purple. Brooklyn Book Festival tomorrow. I haven't been in a few years. I'm almost scared who I'll run into. Blood glucose in the low pre-diabetes range. There's no plot. Nothing pays off. Apply for undergrad, taking the path of least resistance. Handbags of gladiolas spring to life. West Park, play Allison, Why Do I Cry, Leave, where the movie stars play, because they look right at the cameras, knowing how from being off screen. Trauma is research, blocking it out. Had to have been there for half off sushi days. He OD'd on the sky. Genetic fish were a result. Ditched Sunview, ditched potluck, a dust cloud of hostility and weirdness built up from years of bitter weed smoke. Not that many white guys survived. Now the backyards are full of us, because there's always new ones coming in to put Obama back together again. There's a weird lack of electricity in the air, so I get up and walk around to check it out. There was a sad withdrawal of euthanizing an old dog, something to do while I wait for the power to come back on. The block is internal. I abruptly remember that we can't leave now. I think they closed the patio at midnight. Might as well stay till then, clustered in anxiety. A week ago, I was the king of White Castle. Shepherd's pie at home in the fridge. It was pleasant to notate the bits of aleatory errata as a simulacrum of experiencing reality. What does it look like? What does it sound like to be alive? In the heart of my free studio, injected with the times as a means to survive. Back in Kettle Blue, you can see that bouncing, stumbling upon Canteen Corner Shangri-La. Ground meat making me ditto. Price buried in the answers. I just made train. Do you always zip? Nothing good ever happened to me. Opening a hostel in Nicaragua, I had nights of my own. They were on Mondays. Lost my green lighter, which I just fucking bought. May have lost my cinematic selfie stick too. I put stuff down, then I don't remember where the hell it went. Everything costs something. The memories are like scars placed upon the streets. I love this city, and in it, the history of my losing. As I walk through Brooklyn, I am smashed in the face with my past. So it's ruined with tourists. That's not Manhattan's fault. I'd like to go through spring at least. It made me comfortable in front of people to not know what to do with it. When did Greenpoint become meatpacking? And meatpacking become Shaw? That could have lasted 10 years, but Trump scuttled the whole thing. As Prince McNally and I ride out to conquer the night. Woo!
That's great. That's like hot off the press. So
yeah, that was from September. I do zines, so every 6 months I type up my notebooks, and so that was a little, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing to see something show for the first time like that, and right out of the notebook. It's happened a few times for Loon, and I always appreciate it. No pressure on anyone else. But yeah, that was awesome. Not mentioned in Matt's bio. I hope I'm not embarrassing you. I think that he hosts open mic, Easy Paradise open mic on Monday nights at KTV Bar. Always colorful scenes, a lot of musicians, a lot of comedians. poets, writers, a few writers.
Hell yeah.
We did. Well, tradition. Our next reader is D.W. Ardern. He's a novelist, a comic, a screenwriter living in Brooklyn, New York. He is the founding editor of Excerpt, a lit art magazine for emerging fiction writers. His debut novel, Master of Starlight, released last month. And he also recently let me crash on his couch, which I greatly appreciate. There was no quid pro quo. That's not why he's reading books. D.W.
Just in case he doesn't snore. That's the key thing. You want him to ask him multiple nights if they snore, you need a very
Let me stay on your couch.
He's a fine guest, he is.
Can I give you this mic?
Only the lonely. Shoot, here's the mic thing. Okay. Just hold it. You can try this. So this book just came out. This Master of Starlight is my first novel. It came out from Stopping Horse Press. It's about this astronomer in the dunes of Morocco. He's kind of a fuckhead. He sort of traveled the world and has self-exiled himself there. And then he's visited one day by his academic rival, this woman who is sort of the love of his life. So I'm going to pick up from sort of a backstory chapter here, which is when he first meets this woman, Vera. Fall of 1982. After another intern year of chasing stars and international projects, Olivier had returned to his boathouse in Bruges, troubled by the quicksand of his waning youth. He was, by all accounts, an accomplished man. He traveled the world 3 times over and collaborated with some of the greatest minds to ever grace an observatory. However, he couldn't shake the sinking feeling that he'd somehow become his father's son, a builder, a mechanic, a facilitator of others' visions while his own languished, unseen and unrecognized. Regardless, he enjoyed his scruffy reputation as an iconoclast with radical theories on the metaphysical nature of the stars. His travels throughout Asia and the Middle East had only furthered his convictions, fascinated by the mysticism of ancient China, Persia, India, which posed important questions about energy, consciousness, and the transience of the material world. Shortly before his 33rd birthday, Olivier finished his assignment at Cerro Toro Observatory in Argentina. He decided to make a solo excursion to Bolivia, where he'd been told that the starlight's reflection on the salt flats was something beyond imagination. He left at sunrise and drove a rusty orange Chevy Chevrolet north through the Atacama Desert, crossing the border into Bolivia. It was night by the time he arrived at Salar de Uyuni, the scrubby earth smoothing out onto a giant, wet frontier of salt. He had been warned that it was dangerous not to drive too far out in the flats at night, but he would not be deterred. He drove another 20 kilometers into the middle of the shining white heart, enshrined by the majestic Andes. He parked. He marched determined, laden with his telescope and rucksack, the night sky perfectly mirrored on the salt, as if he were traversing the Milky Way on foot. He'd come to see the southern hemisphere's Omega Centauri in all its glory and observe the behavior of certain binary systems in the globular cluster. He'd mapped out the GPS coordinates for the relative center of the salt flats. He would settle for nothing less than the perfect outpost for his observations. However, trekking out onto the flats, he was perturbed to hear a transistor radio playing American folk music. It grew in volume. It was coming from precisely where he was headed. He could see the vague outline of a jeep stationed on the salt. He walked toward the song as the sweet voice of Joni Mitchell wavered up the flats, deeply annoyed that his birthday stargazing trip had been ruined by a tourist. He crept closer, passing the jeep. A chair, propane stove, sleeping bag, the angular jut of a telescope, its owner nowhere to be seen. It was one of the new portable Celestrons. He peeked in the viewfinder. It was focused on Omega Centauri. Hello? Can I help you? That's mine. He looked over his shoulder, surprised to discover a young woman standing there on the flats. Her blonde hair tied in a ponytail, her overalls covered in salt. Later, for years, Olivier would replay this moment over and over in his mind, trying to make sense of its magic. Was it circumstance? Was it fate? Her eyes struck him with their cosmic fire. He was captivated by this mysterious woman who surfaced from the salty darkness. He interpreted her intensity as an undeniable magnetism between them, until he realized she was clutching a knife. "Back away," she ordered. "Are you a thief?" "I'm Ollie." "All right, Ollie," she said. "That still doesn't explain why you're poking around my camp in the middle of the night." "I'm an astronomer," he said, lifting up the telescope case. "Likely story. I swear. Prove it," she said. Olivier laid his case on the salt and snapped open the latches. With the speed of a soldier assembling a rifle, he constructed his Criterion Dynascope and pointed it into the starry dynamo. He asked her what she wanted to see. "How about the Crab Nebula? That seems fitting the way you skitter." He toured the southeast quadrant of the north sky and found it in less than 10 seconds. She told him to step away. She looked in the telescope. "So you're not a liar," she said, adjusting the focus length. "That's good. I hate liars." "What's your name?" Olivier asked. "Vera," she said, as she sheathed her knife. Olivier told her that he'd been helping oversee the construction of Deep Space Telescope Array at the Saratoga Observatory. She told him that she'd been volunteering for the SLO at the La Silla Observatory while on sabbatical from the University of Amsterdam, where she taught astrophysics. She eventually warmed to his presence after watching him shiver on the salt flats for 30 minutes of her interrogation. She lent him a blanket and invited him to join her. They shared a can of beans and their favorite stars in the southern hemisphere above them. They talked about new galaxies, star systems, exoplanets, discovered by telescopes around the world, trading facts and figures on the discoveries and the marvelous technology that made it possible. She told him that she envied his life of travel. She often felt like an imposter in the rarefied world of academia, having grown up on a farm in the Netherlands. And so, she escaped on adventures at every opportunity offered by the university. Conversation was easy with her. They settled into a familiar cadence. It surprised him. Maybe it surprised her too. Eventually, she told him he was welcome to camp with her if he agreed to maintain a gentlemanly distance, not so subtly reminding him that she had a knife and wasn't afraid to use it. The next morning, they walked the salt flats together. She asked him if he'd been south of Patagonia. He told her no. "Want to go?" she asked. I wouldn't mind the company if you wanted to go tag along." For most of Olivier's life, his neuroses had guided his decision-making, running through probabilities, seeking counts from the stars, listening to the tolling bell in his mind saying, "Now, now, now, behold the arrow of time, the splitting paths before you, choose the right one." He had no thoughts, gazing into Vera's imploring eyes. Instantly, he said yes.
Thank you, W. So yeah, I'm going to read it for the first half here. Master Starlight, go find copies if you can. I don't know, TW, do you have any on you? Or,
I found it too.
Yeah, there will be a few here for sale, if you're interested. I'm going to read it the first half. David Gordon was born in New York City. He attended Sarah Lawrence College, holds an MA in English and Comparative Literature, and an MFA in Writing, both from Columbia University. His first novel, Serialist, won the VCU Cabell First Novel Award and was a finalist for an Edgar Award. His latest, a neo-noir called Behind Sunset, is set in LA in the 90s at the intersection of the porn world, the new age spiritual scene, and show business. Three great things. I don't know, maybe they're not. A video game co-written with Hampton Fancher, Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049. Hampton was a screenwriter for both of those. Is due in 2026. That's next year. So soon. His work has appeared in Harper's, Paris Review, the New York Times Magazine, and elsewhere. Everybody, David.
Let's see if I can manage it up in classes, but yeah, it's okay. All right. So yeah, like I said, I'm just gonna read. I forgot to time it, so we'll see how much I can do. But all you really need to know is that it's the 90s and it's a porn magazine office. Pornography was making Elliot sad. When he'd first taken the job as an associate editor at Raunchy magazine, he expected a certain underworld glamour, at least, a little noirish romance perhaps, and for sure, a lot more money. After all, despite being strictly legal, he was dwelling in the realm of what the cops on TV still sometimes call vice. And if vice didn't pay, then what hope was there? So far, he barely left the office. Soon enough, adventure and desire would come knocking, followed swiftly by danger and fear, but for now, they were nowhere on his morning to-do list. Today, there was only one unsolved mystery open on his desk. What was there left to say about a naked woman? He lifted his eye from the loop and sat back from the light box, where the sleeve of colored slides glowed like a stained glass window, illuminating the stations of the pornographic passion play. Clothed, half-clothed, naked, touching herself here and there, standing, sitting, splitting, he picked up the smudged photocopies of the model's ID and signed release. Latinka Smemko, citizen of Czech Republic. She looked pale and glum in her passport photo, huddled in a scarf, a depressed sister to the prancing, eager fawn in the slides. Sprawled and squeezed into a dozen contorted forms on the cheap bedroom furniture Elliot recognized from other sets by the same photographer. Slathered with makeup, hair piled and permed, dressed in black plastic hip boots and gloves, and smiling like Miss America. But no all-American gal would give so much for so little. According to the model release, she had received $200, which a top stripper could earn dancing on a single lap. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union, it was mostly Eastern Europe and Russia that fed Poland's insatiable hunger for new bodies. Was poor Leontinka being exploited? Of course, but this was also no doubt the most money she'd ever made, probably for the easiest, least degrading work. So what was Elliot's excuse? He was a highly educated 25-year-old American pissing away his prime for $6.9230 an hour after taxes, if you figured on a 10-hour day. Unlike his employer, he didn't deduct for lunch. He reasoned any time his job required him to be where he wouldn't otherwise choose, it was work. He also therefore included his driving time to and from the office, as well as the 5-block walk he made twice daily to the closest free legal parking. For Elliot, work was war, or rather, since it was all too obvious who'd won this class war, work was a kind of POW camp. You did what you had to do to survive, jumped and saluted, laughed at the commandant's jokes and pledged allegiance, but in your heart, you remained an enemy, and you kept up the struggle with what few weapons remained: complaining, loafing, petty theft. Every illicitly licked stamp or pilfered pen was a tiny raise. Each afternoon crossword session, the men's room stall, a triumph of the human spirit. That said, his piss-poor attitude had an upside, efficiency-wise. It made him a demon for deadlines. He'd rather slit his wrist than spend his off hours worrying about the unwritten copy sitting on his desk. He reserved that personal time for thinking about how he wasn't getting paid enough. He'd become a kind of porn magician, glancing at each photo just long enough to improvise a backstory for the inane action, pulling aliases out of a Name Your Baby book, and churning out the copy as fast as his fingers could type. I always fantasized about feeling 2 dudes in my butt at one time, Cape Dreamer Donna declares. Everyone laughed and said it was impossible, but I wasn't going to let negative thinking hold me back and ruin my Christmas. I'm a romantic at heart, lovesick Leslie sighs. That's why I shave my quim. Every morning I think, this could be the day I meet my prince. Elliot sat back with a sigh,
and flexed his tired wrists. Could he get workman's comp for porn-related carpal tunnel? The saddest part was that this was by far the best paying job that he ever held, and the one that made best use of his master's in English and Comp Lit that he ruined his credit struggling to pay for. It was, frankly, the only time he'd been published anywhere, or that anyone had ever paid him to write. If he'd sold his soul, then what was truly obscene was the price. The wages of sin were, as it turned out, disappointingly low. Such was the labor of lust. His duties at Raunchy were several, including editing, journalism, fiction writing, often all at the same time. Under an assortment of pseudonyms, he would write an article on, say, how to spot an nympho, fill it with expert medical quotes and statistics drawn from his aching head. A nympho will sleep with anyone. A slut will sleep with anyone but you. Write the cover lines hyping it, then edit and respond to the letters attacking it, in one case promising an irate reader that he would fire himself. He also wrote his own letters, scorching confessions of debauchery attributed to some Suzanne or Collie or Jill, then answered the mail the girls received from eager suitors, mostly men in uniform, soldiers, sailors, convicts, and the occasional janitor. But the heart of his work, the lifeblood of the magazine, was the girl copy. These little soliloquies that accompanied the photos, the fake names and ridiculous personalities he invented each month were, he was told, why men bought the magazine. Eliot found it hard to believe. Text seemed entirely superfluous, and he was sure you could reprint the phone book next to an open crotch shot and sell just as many copies. But the mail proved him wrong. If Eliot said that a moon-faced blonde diddling herself in a VW microbus was a flower child who adored Jerry Garcia and longed to spread free love, some old freak wrote in claiming to be a dead ringer for the bearded fat man. If he had a single mom with 3 kids and fake pointy nails called herself a hungry cougar, a whole frat house volunteered to be her prey. It seemed that they weren't buying sex after all. They were buying desire, the chance to fantasize. And Eliot's overheated brain was the sweatshop that provided the dreams. There was something oddly poignant about these letters. They were protestations of faith, gestures of hope that, against all evidence to the contrary, there existed some enchanted valley somewhere, full of women whose highest aspiration was to get down and dirty with them. After all, utopia is where the desires of others somehow exactly match your own. And in this way, porn, like the romance novels these men's wives and sisters and moms might be reading when they weren't peeking at Raunchy 2, was a species of fantasy, or perhaps sci-fi. They seemed happy just to know the promised land existed and that he, their surrogate, was reigning in it as a prince of the realm. Even more astounding to Eliot than the men slathering over the make-believe women were the scores of eager real-life women begging for a chance to become make-believe. Each issue contained amateur photos sent in by ordinary women in polyester lingerie with framed portraits of the kids visible on the wall in the background, posed on waterbeds with whiskey bottle collections on the shelves, or proudly displayed atop a bright red Camaro. Eliot spent many hours with his nose inches from these Polaroids and blurry snapshots, reading the questionnaires the contestants filled out and spotting, through his magnifying glass, the objects in their homes and trailers, the Jesus posters and world's best mom mugs, the self-help books and Marilyn Manson CDs. Many were strippers from Lubbock or Cincinnati or Myrtle Beach, hoping for an as-seen raunchy boost to their resumes. And some were hopelessly reckless party girls, headed straight for rehab or prison. Like Deanie, an 18-year-old dropout captured butt naked on the kitchen table with a homemade tattoo on her leg that read, "Beer," in a first grader's slanted scroll. But most were regular folks, secretaries, dental hygienists, waitresses, and warehouse workers with husbands and kids. Maybe if you spent all day separating chicken parts or answering 411 calls, spreading your legs to the world felt like freedom and empowerment. The most popular fantasies were lesbianism, being the star of a gangbang, or having sex in the rain. And the #1 hobby was writing poetry. That had once been Eliot's hobby too. Of course, these were Eliot's relatively normal readers. Every morning's mail delivered smeared, scrawled, misspelled pleas and provocations from the insane, the perverse, and the moronic. Dear Raunchy, I am a virgin, 45 years old, who loves to masturbate outdoors. I am very excited that there are girls like Brittany who like to have sex in cars, buses, elevators, and playgrounds. I would definitely subscribe to your fine magazine, but my mother wouldn't allow it. Dear Raunchy, as a natural, pure Aryan racialist, I was disgusted by that race traitor Chrissy, Buck, and Leroy, too black, too strong, too long. That slut deserves to die of AIDS, and so do you for printing it, you Jew bastard. Dear Raunchy, thank you for the hot three-way with Chrissy. She's almost as hot as my wife. Do you know if those studs could do her? She and I would both really appreciate it. To the editor, Jesus tries to break into my house every night. He can make himself small to crawl in the drain or huge to crush me in his giant hand. Insane Catholic cannibal eat the flesh and drink the blood of Christ. My doctor said if I wrote you any more letters, he would put me away. He would protect my rights to free speech and religion. Dear editor, sir, I am wrongly incarcerated for a crime I did not commit. Can you help me get a new lawyer and send me some free magazines? Dear raunchy editor, why don't you show more Dutch girls with very large bottoms and blonde bobs? Eliot slouched forward, face in his hands. There was no end to this parade of human folly. Like Miss Lonely Hearts, driven mad by his desperate readers' ceaseless pleas for answers where there were none, Eliot had nothing but lies with which to comfort his yearning flock. Weird as they were, at times their desires seemed no more ridiculous than his own. A job he liked, and someone who liked him. Thanks.
Nathaniel West, David Gordon, thank you, that was great. I really love the line about Utopia, desires, nature, and so on. So we'll take like a 10-minute break here. We'll get some music from Matt and Lauren. I will mention, talk to the authors, check out the books if you like. I'm also the editor of a lit mag called Big Score. We have our debut issue is for sale up front as well. Also gimmicks.
Thank you.